One, what are those areas of financial literacy that our youth should have better understanding of? So that's number one. And then number two, what are some ways in general through which we can be engaging our students in conversations around financial literacy?
Got it. Okay. So, for one, like what should they actually go learn if they're going to go learn it when it comes to personal finance, right? It's actually not that complicated. The word finance is scary, so people don't even want to talk about it. They don't want to look into it. They think it's going to be all this ridiculous terminology and math, but it's not. The answer to the question is the basic stuff. Like learn about how much money is coming in, how much is going out, how are you allocating your money. Budgeting is literally the biggest way you can change your financial life. And it's so easy that nobody wants to do it, right? You just need two columns and you have an income column and an expense column, and you kind of categorize things. And now you have a very good high level view of what's going on with your money. And you can quickly see, like, wow, I'm spending too much money on this thing. Or what are some other opportunities to improve my revenue, right? Which is a more optimistic way to approach finances as opposed to how do I just keep cutting costs. So I think budgeting is one of the biggest ones. And then restructuring your accounts, right? One of the things I do for a lot of clients is a lot of the time we end up with so many bank accounts because we open our first one at 16, then another one at 18, and then we have our 401 from our first job. And over time, it ends up being like this 18 checking accounts, 12 saving accounts, six of which we don't even know where they are, and two 401ks with the last guys. So at some point, maybe every couple of years, going back and looking over all of your accounts and being like, does this actually make sense in terms of what my financial goals are? Right. A lot of the time, the answer is no, because as time goes on, we should restructure our finances, right? We should maybe it's our risk tolerance, maybe our income changed, maybe there was some other kind of asset movement, right? So it's always good to go high level, look at what's going on with your accounts, and then optimize them. I think budgeting and account optimization, right? But again, these are simple things, very simple things that can and will change your financial future. And the second part of the question, was it how do you engage these users? Was it about engagement?
Yeah, how
Yeah,
would we engage our students,
yeah.
particularly, I would suppose, our middle and our high school students, but maybe, Tevin, if you have some ideas on how we could be structuring the teaching of financial literacy by age or grade level too, that might be interesting as well for our listeners to know.
Yeah. So that's a tough one. And there was an education conference a few weeks ago, and that was one of the big topics, right? How do you engage these students, especially if they're middle school, high school students? Then when it comes to the topic of personal finance, so obviously, uh, you can start teaching kids in first grade personal finance, right? Those would be more theoretical ideas, and you don't want to get into the math with, 1 through 6 because they're just learning math. But you can talk about concepts with them, and you can help them to structure their beliefs and mind in a certain way where when they start to hit middle school and high school and after, they've now been conditioned to think about money in a more optimistic way, right? And that is a massive driver. Like people can discount that theory, but if you don't know how to appropriately think about money, like it doesn't matter if you go to Harvard and you become a Harvard lawyer and you make $4 million a year, you may still have like a small mind about the money. You may still be afraid to make investments or try to grow your funds or develop wealth out of that income because you can definitely do it off of an income like that. Then when you get into middle school and high school, you can start to introduce concepts like what's credit and really how does it work and what is it made up of, right? And you could give the students scenarios of um, well, if you have this kind of score, you want a house, right? At some point in your life. Well, hey, by 25, if you want a house, if you don't have the credit, you're going to have to pay for it cash, right? Basically, you need to come up with 1 million, 2 million in cash to buy that house. Now, this is why it's important for you to understand credit score. And you kind of get their attention, right? Because now it's real. They do want to buy a house when they get older. They do want a car when they get older, right? And they have to lease it or finance it or whatever it might be. So once they understand that without credit, they would have to pay cash, which some people by 25 can do, whether or not it's the best decision, we'll leave it for later. But once you kind of tie the concepts to the reality of their lives, and even if it's not the current reality, the future reality of their lives, they would be more interested in understanding those concepts.